All right, everybody, this is Reverend Chris. I am here every Wednesday, almost every Wednesday. This is our weekly Hump Day recording. And welcome to all of you that are here now who will join us during the call and who will watch after the fact because they couldn't be here at this time. So welcome to all of you, and thank you for being here with me in one way or the other. So the thing that we're going to talk about today on this Wednesday, August 14th, it just boggles my mind to think that it's the middle of August already. Oh my God. Anyway, if you have any questions or comments during this live session, please put them in the chat box, unless I am opening up your microphones to have a conversation, which I hope that we can do here in a little bit. So the subject today is all about compassion. And we are being told, I mean, this is not any news to us, is that compassion is like the major energy of this time in our ascension process. We are being called to exhibit compassion in a way that we never have before. And knowing my own experiences with compassion, learning what it is, how to deal with it, and everything, which I will talk about a little later. And also my awakenings as to the Christed consciousness and what that's calling us to do, and how the Christed consciousness is different than our lower ego mind consciousness. All of that put together, my team said it was time for this conversation. And actually, you can see I have this little Post-it note, and it's been sitting here on my laptop for close to a month now. That's how long ago this came to me. It was given to me. The difference between the compassionate Christ and the compassionate ego. And I will just say, if for any reason my internet connection is lost, hang in there and hold the space, because as long as you stay, I should be able to come back and continue, and the recording should continue through that time, hopefully. So anyway, we're going to have a conversation about compassion then today, and we're going to find out what is compassion. You know, how is it? What is the difference between the Christed compassion and ego compassion? Where is that? Which one is which? In last week's session, I addressed this to a certain extent, kind of skimmed by it, but today we're going to go into it more deeply. And I started the conversation yesterday in our Divine Interventions group, and I asked people to give, to share their definition of what compassion is. What do you think it is? Not to spit out some kind of dictionary definition of compassion, but when you think of the word compassion and being compassionate, what is that? What does that mean to you? If you're going to tell somebody else what compassion is, what is it? And so I wanted to share with you some of those answers. All right, so from Deb Riesbeck, she says compassion is coming from your heart to understand another person and what they are going through. Okay, sounds reasonable, right? Sherry Borek says love is compassion. Yes, it's a very big love energy. Nancy, Nancy, I know I'm going to murder your last name, Pietrzykowski. That's as good as I'm getting. Sending love from your heart to someone else's heart because they are suffering. That sounds pretty good too. And then Sherry Cootie said that to her, compassion is feeling love and understanding from a soul level. So I'm not going to say any of these are good or bad. They all, in my estimation, are in the compassion ballpark. And we'll just talk a little bit of the nuances about these things. And you have to, when we're talking about compassion and what it means and you're trying to define it, there's a little bit more to it when we get into it. All right, so what I didn't ask, and I'm going to open up the mic right now so Chris, who is here, can give me some of her input. And the question here is, Chris, when you are being compassionate toward somebody, how does that feel for you? What is that like on your end?
Non-judgment.
Mm-hmm.
I guess would be the best way to explain it. I'm not sure. Walking in someone else's shoes, putting myself in their position and trying to take on their perspective for choices that I don't necessarily, that I would not choose the same thing that they're choosing.
Okay.
Try to put myself in their shoes and look at their situation because I think that all of these things matter.
Mm-hmm.
That's my daughter.
You can talk to the alien lady?
I'm trying to think. So I guess, is that descriptive enough?
Yeah. And we'll talk more about that later. Hey, Mary, good to see you. You're just in time.
Call ended.
Mary, you here with us?
I heard
I am.
it said call ended. Oh.
Okay. All right, so Mary, we were just talking about compassion. And I'm going to go ahead and mute Chris's again. So Mary, what I've just done is I've read the responses to the question I asked in the group, which was, what's your definition of compassion? So we're moving on from that now. And the question to you then is, based on what you perceive as compassion, when you are engaging in compassionate acts or you are being compassionate toward another person or situation, how does that feel from your end? You there? You with us?
You talking to me?
Yep, I am.
Well, to me, compassion is seeing myself in another person.
Okay. When you are doing something out of what your perception of compassion, because we all have our own, when you are doing something from your perspective, something compassionate or engaging in compassion for another person, animal, being, situation, whatever it is, how does that, how do you go about doing that? How does that feel for you from your perspective? Not what it does for them or anything else, but how do you engage in that?
Well, it feels good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like yesterday, for example, or it may have been the day before. It's irrelevant. I was dropping off some fruit to my brother, and I saw a man that was obviously homeless sitting in there. And I had just bought some bananas, and I walked up to him with some bananas and asked if he was hungry. And I gave them to him. And, you know, he said, you know, blessings, peace, and love. And, you know, I've gotten the most sincere thank yous from people that had nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Where you really feel it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool. Hang on a second. Got it. All right. So that's good. And so you kind of just went into the third question of, you know, what does compassion look like when you give it? For you, it was in that example, sharing, you know, giving those bananas to somebody who didn't have, you know, understanding that he didn't have and you did, and you're sharing with them and saying, look, here, you can have this because I can get more, you know.
Right, and I also realized that that could be me one day. That is me.
Yes, very good. Good point. Wonderful point. Thank you for bringing that up. And, you know, we'll keep that note there aside, because that is the perspective of the Christed consciousness, is realizing that we are all one at a certain level, you know, and even so, you know, at soul levels, we are all really different facets of the same gem. So yeah, you know, that was you in that sense, and that was an awesome piece of realization. All right, so I want to share a few things. I'm going to go into screen share, and I have some pictures I'm going to share with you all, and I'm not going to say anything about them. I'm just going to share them one-to-one, and then we'll talk about them after I've shared them. Get this back here. Okay, this is the first one to look at. The only thing, this is 2004, after the Phuket tsunami went through, day after Christmas. All right, come on. There we go. There's another one I don't think I need to explain. And the next one. I know you guys are on the phone. Can you even see what I'm showing you?
Yes, I can.
Okay. All right, this next one, the one that I'm showing now, is everybody having to leave their cars because of the, at one of the California wildfires that jumped the highway. And they just had to leave and flee where they were. This next one needs no explanation. And Mary, can you see this?
I can.
Okay, and Chris, you can see this?
I cannot see.
Okay. So this
Where do I go to?
online. If you go to the group page, right where I have that notice, and you hit the link for online, it'll take you to Zoom.
Oh, okay. I don't have the app.
Yeah. It usually gives you, next time, try doing it a little bit ahead of time. It really isn't the whole app. It just is like a link that allows you to hook up to Zoom, a presentation.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So this next picture that I'm showing is of a young girl who's got a black eye, and she's got duct tape over her mouth. And the duct tape on it says, "If you tell anyone, I'll kill you." The next image is from Hurricane Katrina, and it's of a house with the cars flooded alongside of it, and the house, getting underwater. And on the roof is the message, "Please help us." 5 people, 1 dog, and 1 cat. The next image is an image, a screenshot from CNN after the Las Vegas shooting. 50 dead, 400 injured in the Las Vegas massacre. And then the last one is of a homeless man sitting in the street with his German Shepherd in his lap, cuddled up to his German Shepherd. And then the second one that I showed was of a starving child from Africa. And, or the third one actually. And then the second was of a severely abused dog. And then the first one was after that tsunami. And this is the first one, is a guy walking through the rubble. The only things that are standing are the mosques that were hanging around. Everything else is gone. And just the one guy walking through it all. Okay, so there's nothing really unusual about these images. We are flooded with them all the time. If you're on Facebook, you can't go a day without Facebook without coming across something like that. We're talking about the missing children and the abused animals and all of the, the natural disasters that happen, and the massacres and shootings and this and that and the other thing. And we've got images coming at us and, soliciting, begging us to be connected to them and to move into compassion. It's not that they are outwardly begging, but when you see those images, what is your response? And even like Chris, when I was describing them, what is your response to those? I mean, what is your, what is your first response when you see those?
A pull to take away the pain being felt.
Okay.
Unconditional love. Sorry, my kids are loud.
How old is she? How old's your daughter, Chris?
One is 8 and one is a year and a half.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's a good spread. All right, so, and as you see these things endlessly, one after another coming past you, what is the overall feeling, impression, impact that these have on you and your energies and your being?
For me, when I see it over and over again, it's almost as if I become desensitized. Maybe as a defense mechanism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I'll talk about my experience with that, but yeah, you're right. It gets to be too much. Mary, how about you?
Painful. I mean, even looking at them, it's starting to ease now, but I felt a really bad aching in my heart center.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I look at it too that, you know, it seems like when these things happen, you know, when these major events happen, we all come together and everybody helps, and that's great. But then it slowly goes away, and we go back to the way things were before it happened. It seems like it takes a natural disaster, something horrible,
Mm-hmm.
to jolt people.
Well, it does. Why do you think that is?
Well, because we're probably so desensitized.
Yeah. What is the reason for that then? So we have to take the next step then, is the desensitization. What's the reason for us to be so desensitized? We say desensitized, and I'm kind of leaning toward not that we are desensitized from it, because that could be, you know, that's part of it. But more for me, it seems, and from my own experience, it's just that we have to back away. We have to shut it down.
Mm-hmm.
Because we get so drawn into it, right? You said you got that heart thing. You just can't deal with that all the time.
I have, Chris. I tell you, there have been so many, you know, like pages that I follow on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
and I would notice myself, you know, going down my timeline, and I would start to feel myself feeling worse and worse, and I just stopped following them because I don't need that.
Yeah, yeah, and I understand that totally, because I've had that same thing, because I find myself, I'm a minister, for heaven's sakes, right? I'm supposed to have all of this compassion and be helpful and telling people they're wonderful and, you know, blah, 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 all along. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. But I find myself also to the point where I have to shut it out. I couldn't, you know, I couldn't deal with it. And so I shut it out. I said, look, you know, this is not my battle to fight. And that's true. We can't be everywhere at once doing everything for everybody. So what it comes down to, you know, you get to the mere thought of the fact that there is all of this pain in the world, and everybody is trying to pull you in 16 different directions or a bazillion different directions at once to take care of it all. You know, I didn't even touch the environmental impact of stuff in the pictures that I did. All right, that's another big area we're talking about. Diseases, all of this stuff. You know, wounded vets, disabled people. You know, you can name it. The list is like interminable, and we can't do it all. And so we get to a point where we feel so depleted, at least in my experience, just by attaching to these things and taking on their stuff for us, right? This
Yes.
is key. When we take this into us, then it automatically transmits that same vibrational frequency to us and pulls us down. And we can only take so much of that before we get totally depressed and are useless to anybody else. So we tend to turn it off. And does everybody, you understand where I'm coming from with that, or anybody feel differently about it?
I absolutely agree.
I resonate with what you're saying.
Yeah.
Completely.
It's just, it's just too much. We can't save the world. But at the same time, let's move into now. Let's talk about Jesus. All right. If Jesus was known for anything, it was his compassion. It oozed out of him for all people of all kinds, all situations. And your first talk about judgment being non-judgmental was a big part of it, but he was non-judgmental because he saw everybody and everything as one and as part of him, as part of us. And that was, we were him in the deepest possible way. So how did Jesus deal with all that he was faced to? Because it wasn't even just the random people that he would come into, like we see these posts on Facebook. I mean, they came to him in throngs of people with all kinds of problems and issues to deal with. So how did he deal with bringing compassion to the issue without being overwhelmed by it and totally taken away by it?
I think it gets to a point where you have to remove yourself from the emotion to a degree.
Bingo.
And that's hard to do. That's really hard.
Yeah, it is hard to do, but there's the difference here is if we think about and the comments that you made and I read off from Facebook and everything has to do with us engaging in a certain amount of empathy, saying, okay, getting in somebody else's shoes and walking in those shoes. And that's what wears us out. That is an ego thing where the ego says, oh, I've been there, done that. That's awful. And the ego wants to identify with self, okay? Wants to self-identify with that person's issues or the issues in the situation. The ego wants to do that because that's what the ego is about, is me, 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 me. And it stays down here and it lowers the vibration and it takes in all of that stuff, right? The ego just grabs it from everybody else, embeds it in our own energy fields. And next thing you know, we're a mess. We're depressed. We have no energy. We can't stand even looking at another one of those things. I've been to that point where I got to the next one, just like you said, that, the next one comes along, you're just, I can't do it anymore. You got to turn it off and say no. And why is that? Because we approach this from an ego standpoint. Now, there's nothing wrong with that per se, because there is that caring element, and it's easier to care for somebody that you can identify with in some way, or you have an issue that even though you may not have that issue, you can find a way to identify with it in your own experience. So, and the ego is a master at doing that. And so you connect to that person and you attach to that person and you take it on as your own thing. And the funny thing about that is that when we do that, then we have two victims. We haven't really helped the person that we are attempting to be, compassionately involved with and assisting. All we have done is made the pool of misery bigger by saying, oh man, I have been there, done that. That is so awful. I understand how you must deal? Isn't it horrible? What can I do for you? What kind of help can I give you? I know that it made me feel really good to have somebody else do something, which, kind of all sounds good, but it's just more low vibrational misery energy. And what Jesus did was to get out of that ego self-identification thing. It was that even though I am you and you are me, your stuff is not my stuff. Your stuff is here for you to handle. Okay? I am not going to carry it for you. But I will help you in any way I can that assists you in either carrying it better or letting it go so that you can move on, so that you can move through this place that you're in. I'm not here to do it for you. I'm not here to just say, wow, this is awful, and sit in this pit with you and take part of your stuff. That's not what I'm here for. I am here to help you raise up. And I can't raise you up if I'm down there with you. If I'm carrying your stuff, then we're both weighed down. So the Christed consciousness is, as we have already talked about and surmised, is that we got to separate ourselves from it. We have to put like that, a wall between us, and like Jim Self and his wife were talking in that video, Chris, that you watched that I put up on the site, is, getting back inside yourself and looking out from inside yourself. Only looking out, you're in a room and you have windows, your front windows, and you're looking out through the windows. And through those windows, you are seeing what's going on. As soon as you go to connect to it, as you focus on it and you go to it, then it becomes your problem. It attaches to you. Even when you pull away, it still is attached because it's instantaneous. As soon as you connect to and attach with the issue or the problem or the person, it becomes part of your energy field. Then you have to pull back and you still have to clear all that stuff out of you. So the best thing to do is to try that exercise, is to be in that place where you're kind of looking out, I don't know, through your God goggles or through these windows in your head, in your inner self, in your center. See the situation. Offer love. Offer sympathy if it's warranted. Some people don't want sympathy. Ask if there's anything that you can do to help. But don't own the problem. If you walk in, immediately connect to it and try and fix it. Well, gee, I was in this position. I did this and this and this and that. Why don't you do this and that and the other thing? And I don't know about your experience, but in mine, the minute I do that to anybody, they immediately get defensive. Because as miserable as they may be, and as feeling helpless and awful and powerlessness as they may be, and lost, they do not want anybody telling them how to fix it. They're going to deflect and get defensive and tell you all the reasons why whatever it is that you're offering won't work. That happens I can't tell you how many times that's happened to me. And I still do it because I'm an idiot on occasion, especially when it comes to my kids, right? I still have to do that. So we need to do that stepping back. And when we're looking at those images, one after another, you can say, oh, I'm so sorry that happened. And you can pray for it and you can send love to it. And you can pray for the highest and best resolution of the issue in service to the highest good of all involved. If you are called to offer help after you say, gee, is there anything that you know that I can do for you that would be helpful? And it doesn't involve taking on their stuff, then by all means do it, because then you both win. You have offered what was needed, like Mary offered her bananas. And yet you are able to step back and not be part of whatever the other person is going through, whatever the other issue is that's happening. Now, if there's anything, and I don't want to put this out as we have to stay sterile and separate from everything. That's not the way either. But we do have to keep our own energy fields clear of the stuff that isn't ours. If we get involved with it, it's ours. And then we've got to deal with it and clear it out from us, even though it's not ours. It's still going to stick there. And so we really need to try and keep clear. There are, I'm not saying don't get involved in things like environmental cleanups or fights to vaccine or whatever, against vaccines, or helping the homeless, or whatever it is, helping to feed the children, or make bring awareness to child sexual abuse and trafficking. Everybody has a thing that they are innately drawn to help with. And by all means, get neck deep in it, as you're helping. But at the same time, be neck deep, but keep yourself and your energies clear of inviting it in and owning it. You see what I mean? I mean, I'm sitting here talking a lot, but I'm kind of wondering where you are and where you both stand on this. Mary? I mean, you're welcome to disagree if you disagree with me in some way, but just share your thoughts.
No, I don't disagree at all.
Okay. Chris, how about you?
I agree with what you're saying.
Okay. All right. Yeah, and it is very hard, trust me, because when I went through just picking the pictures for today, I was doing it from a place of detachment, but as I went through looking at the collections of them, there were some of them that I got to a point where I had to pull back again. I had to say, no, that's not what I'm doing here, and this is not mine. And every day when I do my morning prayers and I talk to God, one of the first things I do in the morning is I ask God to lift up from me all which is not mine to carry, and to keep from me all which is not mine to deal with. Because we have our own bucket of stuff, and we're not supposed to be carrying other people's buckets, because while we're carrying other people's buckets, we can't deal with our own. And we need to be able to deal with our own to move through our soul and do what we came here to do. Part of the problem, maybe part of the process that we have to go through in all of this, for us, is discernment. All right, discerning what is ours to take care of, and recognizing that and doing that. You know what? If you get everything that's in your bucket taken care of, and you are just, hello, I'm good, and you want to go lift somebody else's bucket for a while, if it will help them, and your discernment, your connection says, yeah, this will help them, then by all means, take it on, do it. Everybody needs help of some kind at some point. And it's like I'm waiting for the good fairy to deliver me a car. That's what I'm looking for next. But I'm just trusting that it's manifesting somewhere. And do not lock yourself in a box away where you're not feeling anything and dealing with anything else in the world, because that doesn't help us either. But use your discernment, figure out what is yours, what is somebody else's, what the cost is to you of taking on somebody else's when your own is still sitting here. And is it worth it? What's the balance? Is it more important for this person to get through this now than it is for you to deal with the things in your bucket now? Maybe so. Like helping out with the grandkids or an emergency situation. You leave the dishes in the sink. They don't have to be clean now. They're still going to be there whenever you get back to them. But you might want to turn off the water in the sink before you leave, because then you got a mess you're coming back to. That's just a simple analogy of how we deal with these pulls on our energies and on our time and our persons and our beings, is using our discernment to figure out, okay, what's the priority here between these two things? This is my stuff. This is somebody else's stuff. Does their priority and their needs outweigh mine at the time? Ooh, excuse me. Oh, excuse me.
Bless you.
All right, so beloved Archangel Michael, please place a dome of light around this space. I'm calling the entire temple this time. But I'm going to ask you to place a dome of light and protection around this space, space of the Hump Day video. Containing all who are here now and all who ever will be. And maintaining that protection throughout this video for all who are here now and all who ever will be when they watch it. So be it. Oh. All right, I'm putting everybody on mute for a minute. All right. Beloved Archangel Michael, please clear our energies. Please perform the purification protection protocols of the temple in this mini temporary temple that we have put up. Thank you, beloved Archangel Michael. Please make sure everybody who is here now and whoever will be is cleared and has that protocol performed for them. In whatever moment of now that they are watching this video. Thank you, and so it is. All right, beloved Jesus. Whew. All right. I welcome Jesus now into this space, this temporary temple space that Michael has put up for us. And I'm going to unmute again now. Beloved Jesus, I welcome you now to this temple space with all of us here now and whoever will be. I thank you for your presence here with us, dearest one. So one of the things that I was shown, and I've talked about this last time, is the difference between compassion and commiseration. Commiseration is where we get into somebody else's skin and we sit there and wallow around in their stuff with them. You know, it's being one with them, saying, oh man, you know, and experiencing their experience from the direct, I'm in your place perspective. And that's not really compassion, because that commiseration, as I talked about before, doesn't necessarily help. All right, so I've lost a connection, and I'm hoping that we are still recording, because I'm hoping it will be coming back here in a minute. But look, being in that space, we're going to get rid of this. What knocked it off? Did I hit the table? I gotta stop. Okay, good. All right, glad you guys hung in there. My table, come on video. Come on video. There we go. There we are. All right, when I go swinging my arms around and bump the table, it loosens up my connection, which then we wind up with what happens. So I'm working on a way to make it tighter so that doesn't happen, but I hadn't got to that yet today. So anyway, when it comes to commiseration, commiseration puts us right in the same soup with everybody, you know, with the other party or in that situation. And it doesn't help us. We need to have our energies high. So compassion is the true Christed, compassionate Christ, or Christed compassion is a totally different energy and way of looking at things. So I want to, Jesus is here now with us. Hello, dear one. He's saying hello to all of us. Thank you. All right, so what Jesus is going to do now is he's going to show to you the energetic impact on you of the way that you're currently exhibiting or showing your compassion. All right, and there's no fault to be had in this. Remember, as I said before, this is a learning experience. This is how we were raised up. We were raised up in the lower mind and the ego in a 3D world. Well, that's changing. So we need to change with it and move up into a higher level of interaction. So Jesus is going to show all of us now what our normal mode of compassion does in our energy fields. I'm feeling like echoes of other people in our energy fields. Are you feeling that too? It's like other people's stuff. All right, so Jesus, having shown us that, could you please clear it all out from us? Those of us who are here now, or whoever will be, and watching this broadcast, that their higher selves and guardian teams are holding the space for. Oh, thank you. That's much better. All right, so now what Jesus is going to do, if I interpret this correctly, is to take us into the place of Christed compassion. What that feels like, what is the perspective that we engage in this from? How does it feel? Now, you may get a vision, whatever the experience is that he's giving to each of us. The first thing he just did was shut down the ego, the subconscious minds. Which has been, always is, trying to self-identify. Okay, so he's taken us higher. And he's taken us up into the temple, above the ego and the subconscious mind. And see, that's the other question that I had is when I was going through all of this. If God and love are infinite, there is no end to the supply, how can we run out and be depleted when we're distributing that to other people through compassion, sending that energy of love and doing whatever? Okay. And that the answer to that is that God and love are infinite, and what we are sending has not been coming from God. It's been coming from us. And that's how we're getting depleted. We're not pulling it through and sending it out. We're just sending it here from the lower heart. That ego love, all right? And the Christed consciousness works at this higher level and around your soul star chakra. If you wanted to think about where you would climb up to, a couple feet above your head. And from that place, that upper temple, above the minds, above the ego and subconscious minds, into your higher mind, and your higher knowing. From that place, you send love. You send pure love, and it comes through from God, from divine source, and you send out that pure love, and you send out the intention that the issue will be healed, cleared, and that everybody receives everything that their highest good is calling for. And moving into this heart connection is a wonderful thing, but boy, you got to be careful, because that heart connection will drain you in an instant, and it will store the wounds. And because it can, not only will it store the wounds from that particular person, then it's going to go access the collective unconscious and say, oh yeah, that wound's been there a long time, so it's going to take even more then. And then next thing you know, you wind up with this huge heart wound that wasn't there to begin with. It's not even yours. So that's why we're being called to get out of that space. You know, we all talk about heart space. Well, in a 3D world, when we're working with ego, that was the best place to come from, because we hadn't acclimated to these higher energies yet, and these higher places and ways of being and states of being. So now the heart space, the equivalent to that, is coming up at your soul star chakra. That's the place to send that love from, and to operate from, and to see things from. And again, how do we know when we are in a state of, when we are sending divine love and God's love to places and not ego love? Ego love is exclusive. It pushes certain things away. It doesn't apply to everything equally. You may be totally drawn to the abused dog, but you won't feel the same energy for the wounded vet or the environment or a woman who's beaten by her husband. Okay? If you can't apply that feeling equally that we think of as love, then it's not divine love, it's ego love. Divine love sits up here and broadcasts to everything equally. That is the biggest thing that we have to learn and remember and integrate into our understanding of the Christed consciousness. Because the Christed consciousness is love. Pure and simple, and it's not heart love. The Christed consciousness is divine love from our soul. That's our soul space. The heart has been the best connector to our soul up to this point. If we have cleared the heart and we are open to that and we get all the rest of the crap out of the way and we've done that work, otherwise we need to go up here. I'm going to tell everybody, go up here anyway, because it keeps us out of this ground level stuff that's floating around everywhere, the nastiness, the upheaval, low energies. So Jesus, yes, you took us up to the soul star. All right. And so we're going to then, from the soul star, what is compassion like from the soul star? All right, and how does that impact us physically, Jesus? More energetically? Doesn't. You see, when we operate from that space, that's pure divine source love and energy that's coming into our soul star and being broadcast out. And it is infinite. We can direct that for as long as we want, in many places as we want, and say, God, fix this. Let's get this done. Let's look, we see the murderers and the thugs and the gang members and the abusers and the traffickers and all these people doing horrible things. We can put compassion in those places because we can see a soul there that needs help. And we direct our compassion and our energy to the soul. To ask for healing of that soul. You ask for that soul and that person to receive all of the help and healing that their soul path and highest good are calling for. That way it's endless. We don't get worn out. We can look at all those pictures and they may hurt our heart if we connect to them, to see that the other creatures are being treated this way, and other people and the earth and whatever it is that we're drawn to. We can pull back from that before we get totally sucked into it emotionally, which is hard, but we have to learn to do that. And send that love, send divine love and divine compassion, Christ's compassion to that situation, to be healed and addressed according to divine will. What is meant to happen? What will bring that person or that situation back to center, back into balance and alignment with love, and where love in its own situation and path would have it be. We can't fix everything. Those of us who are healers, first and foremost, we want to be fixers. We want to fix everybody and everything. And boy, do we have answers. I'm going to tell you how to fix that. Or come here, I'll fix that for you. Or you're doing it wrong. I can show you how to do it right. We want to do that for everybody, but that's not what we're here for. We are here to remove the obstacles that keep us from healing ourselves and from being who we are here to be. That's what a healer's role is here, and a light worker's role is to help remove the blocks, take away the obstacles, show the obstacles so that you can release those obstacles. Being compassionate for somebody in a way that gives them permission to stay where they are, to continue being a victim of whatever circumstances it is, isn't really helping. If we're going to help, we need to ask if they need some help. Would they accept whatever they ask for? Could I help you with that? But we have to make sure that whatever we're asking to help with is not in the parlance of the addict, that we're not enabling them to continue in the space where they exist now. Whatever we do and help them with has to be something that will pull away from them whatever it is that is weighing them down, so that they can stand on their own feet, rise up, and work on their own issues, so that they can heal. They can allow themselves to become their truth and the whole person that they're meant to be. And the situation can heal itself, because everything, Jesus is just sitting here nodding his head. He's like, you go, girl, I don't need to say anything. So But when we talk about love, all right, and I have talked about this a number of times, about divine love is the energy of truth. And it isn't, and when I say energy of truth, everything has a fundamental truth. All right, if you look at, say, the energetic structure and templates and programming and blueprints of a thing, as it was created to be, its divine templates and blueprints, that is its truth. And when we get wounded or we have emotional upheaval or bad stuff happens to us, and the emotional upheaval and energies tend to corrupt that structure, so it doesn't operate the way it was supposed to operate. And the longer that those wounds are allowed to stay there and that corruption is allowed to stay there, the bigger it grows, until that structure becomes, and person, structure, animal, whatever it is, becomes dysfunctional in some way. It's no longer even, functioning according to its true purpose. So healing, and Jesus's energy that he used to heal with, was the golden light energy of divine love. It's the same energy that I carry and was gifted years ago. But that divine love energy comes then applied to that corruption, automatically restores it to its truth, takes it back to the structures and functions and templates and programs that serve it best. Okay, there is, and just like a computer, remember you're running in your computer or your laptop, and you add things to it, make upgrades, add programs, do things on your computer, you have files or whatever that you add, and our computer stores what is called restore points. Every so often it will take a picture of what your computer is looking like at that time, the hard drive and everything going on with it. And if something happens, you can restore from this point of incident, you can restore back to another point in which you're, that had everything that you were supposed to have at that point. So that's kind of what love does. It takes you back to the nearest restore point that serves your highest good in your soul path and is aligned with your original templates and blueprints without that corruption in that area. Okay, so if there's someplace else that's corrupted in another part of the light bodies or physical body, that's another story. But it takes you back. When you apply the light to this place, it takes you back to that truth, right? Your truth, or that object's truth, or person's truth, or situation's truth. That's what love does. It basically recalls, says, let's do a reset, and take this back. That's what divine love does. And that's why the power of love is so incredibly strong. When the Beatles did All You Need Is Love, they weren't talking about just this heart stuff. It wasn't about all you need is love to hang around with your buds and feel love for everybody. No, All You Need Is Love has more to do with divine love restoring truth to everything. And that's what the world needs right now. It needs to be reset back to the templates, the blueprints, and the programming that best allow it to move forward fully into 5D and a culture that is based on the tenets of the Christed consciousness.
Okay.
So when I say that we can sit and we apply love to all of these things, compassion is love, we're applying that, and we can do that infinitely. You know, we don't have to worry about getting stuck into the emotion of it and getting dragged down. We can just sit back and say, okay, you know, you can have love there. We're going to apply that. We're going to ask the angels to come in and bring you that love. No, we're going to do that. We're going to ask the angels to do this. That's not taking my energy. But that allows me to positively impact these situations to the highest level in which it is allowed to be done, and you know, according to the situation. Maybe what I offer, you know, has to be combined with what all other people offer to multiply enough to really make a change. Maybe it's something where a lot of people have to agree in order to do it. But that's basically where we are. That's, you know, the compassion and the Christed light and the Christed consciousness, and the difference between them. Now, did you all feel the difference? I've been yapping all this time. Chris, did you feel the difference between the heart compassion, ego compassion, and the Christed consciousness?
I've been moving around, so I'm gonna have to listen later. I didn't have anything significant happen physically.
Okay, all right. Mary, how about you?
Like
I didn't have anything happen either, but I do know that I do tend to work from the heart space. So I definitely have work to do, yeah.
Yeah. And we all, like I said, I got stuck while I was going through those pictures. It's easy for us to get stuck. We're conditioned to that, you know, and we're conditioned to self-identify with those things. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It allows us to do a lot of things that are good in the world, because when our heartstrings are pulled, you know, that's a message to us that maybe we need to pay attention to something. And then we don't have to act from the heart space. We act from the soul space and the soul star and divine love space, you know? So, all right, anybody have any questions before we leave off tonight?
I don't at this point.
All right, good. Mary, you good?
I'm good, thank you very much.
Oh, you're quite welcome. Thank you guys for being here. And things that, you know, it's gotten really kind of, hang on here a minute. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to end the recording. Thank you all for being here. And
Thank you.
I hope to hope that more of you have taken advantage of the recording when I put it up. And thank you all for being here.
Night.